Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Progressive Action TV show. I am your host, Tramel Thompson. And before I start, I just want to remind you guys that it is tribe season. I will explain that at a later date, but just know that it's tribe season. But today's show is going to be very insightful. I'm going to show you guys how much you do not need to know to be an MTA board member. Yes, you heard correct. How much you do not need to know to be an MTA board member. Actually, I'm going to be playing a clip from a recent interview from a Governor Hochul nominee to be on the MTA board. And it's going to be very shocking for a lot of people. Also in this show, I'm going to be discussing why the MTA cannot maintain ranks in the workforce. They are having a hard time getting people to take MTA jobs. And you know, at one time they used to say MTA, ATM. That's no longer the case. All of that, oh, we have a pension, this and that. That is no longer the case. And we're going to be breaking that down line by line. And I took a clip from this past Wednesday's MTA board meeting from a person named, I think his name Lisette Camilo. We're going to get into her a little later and her job at the MTA. She's new. She came from DCAS. We're going to be discussing that a little later too. But this is what the show is going to be basically about. You know, MTA struggles to rebound from transformation tornado to workforce. But let's get into what I want to get into first is this video. Now, this video that I am about to play, the video I'm about to play is it's actually an interview by the Senate Committee on Lisa Sorin. Lisa Sorin is actually Governor Hochul's nominee to be on the MTA board. And let's just listen to this video, and I'm going to break it down line by line. And it's only a minute and 40 seconds. But I want to show you how much you do not need to know to be on the MTA board. Let's get into it.
And I'm curious.
Can you identify any of the commuter lines? Do you know any of the lines that are in west of Hudson, east of Hudson, or Long Island?
Other than that, I was there.
No, not LIRR generally. I mean, that's the whole Long Island system. I mean,
Now listen to how he checked her. She did not know the answer, but check it out. It gets worse. Listen up.
Specific line in any of the commuter rails.
The only commuter rails that I am familiar with would be the Harlem and the Metro North, which would be
the Harlem line is a line. Metro North is not. But
listen to that. He said, "Are you familiar with any of the commuter lines?" She said the Harlem line, which by her answer, I think that she just meant Harlem, right? And then she said Metro North. She doesn't understand that the Harlem line is within Metro North. She thought Metro North was a line within itself. Now, this is someone who the Governor Hochul, the person who is in charge of the MTA, is appointing someone on the MTA board who doesn't know lines in the MTA. Let's continue to listen.
Are you familiar with the relationship between west of Hudson and New Jersey Transit?
I am not.
Okay.
Another answer she's not familiar with. But she is appointed once again by the governor to be on the MTA board. Let's continue.
There is a relationship. In fact, New Jersey Transit, our passengers head to New Jersey before transferring at Hoboken or Secaucus to get into New York City, which is itself its own issue. Do you believe that the commuter lines get their fair share of MTA investment?
Based on...
She's not qualified to answer that question because she don't even know what the commuter lines are. But once again, this is a Governor Hochul appointee. Let's continue.
On what I know, I think that there's an ability to grow that. I'm not an expert in it, but I believe that as we grow and when you...
She's not an expert in it. She don't even know what lines run on which. She's not qualified to be an MTA board member. Let's continue.
Mentioned in New Jersey, my daughters actually go quite often to New Jersey through Penn. I'm not sure. I believe that fair share is a conversation to be had across the board, and the commuter lines are no different.
Okay. And I'll just end with a comment.
People, we see how much you do not need to know to be on the MTA board. And like I said, some people will say, well, it's not really nothing. No, it's important who's on the MTA board. These people decide how much the fare increases are going to be. They vote on union contracts. They decide where money is going to be spent for construction, accessibility, elevators, escalators, what stations are going to be rehabbed. They approved $30 million steps in Times Square. The MTA board is very important, and to have people who's not knowledgeable of the system to at least know what lines run on which shows that they are not qualified to be on the MTA board. But guess what? They all voted for her to be on the MTA board. So we have a person that's going to be on the MTA board that's not going to know a lot of things about the MTA. Congratulations. And this is the embarrassment that we have as an agency. The people who makes the decisions for the workers and riders are not qualified to make those decisions. I'm not saying everybody holds her expertise or lack thereof of the MTA. There are some smart people on the MTA board, but this gives you an insight on the governor, the person who's in charge of the whole MTA, is appointing someone who doesn't know something as simple as the lines of the MTA. And that person is Lisa Soren. She is the governor's appointee. And we're going to be in bad shape if this actually continues. We're going to be in bad shape, not only as workers, but as riders as a whole. So let's get into the meat and bones of why we are here today. So the MTA is having an issue with worker availability. People are not eager to take MTA jobs any longer. And I listened to the new person who spoke, Lisette Camilo. And let's get into a little bit of her history real quick. A little bit of her history. Okay, so Lisette Camilo, she did 5 years for DCAS, right? So she has some experience on onboarding employees to see probably where there may be deficiencies in the system to get people on board or whatever the case is. But more importantly, Lisette Camilo is a lawyer. Now, the MTA, I noticed this has been a trend lately for the MTA. They have been hiring nothing but lawyers. Lawyers are running this company. And it seems as if it's getting to the point, as long as you have a law degree, they're going to hire you and throw you anywhere and pray to God that you know how to run that part of the company. And as we have seen these past 3-4 years, when the MTA started buying into this policy heavily, the company has been on a nosedive down. And they're not listening to workers who've been here for years. They don't care about our ideas. You know, a lot of lawyers treat regular people as second-class citizens. Like, I have a lot of lawyer friends. They speak about other lawyers and how they treat people and things of that nature. So I'm well aware of what's going on. But I want to dive into this conversation. And like I said, I'm going to be jumping in and out of this conversation because it is very important for the people to see what's going on and how things are going and why these decisions are being made. So let me back this up a little bit. Let's get straight into it.
Lizette Camillo is going to give us an update on the critical work that we're doing to recruit and retain staff. I think folks on the board recall that at the outset of my time here, I highlighted.
So I need you guys to pay attention. I mean, if you look on the bottom left-hand corner, I'm there. This made my screen smaller so you guys could see the big picture of what's going on. But they are trying to figure out the staffing issues here in the MTA. Let's continue.
Had not left us in good shape as far as staff, both in numbers, because we had that hiring freeze and we'd had such tremendous attrition, but also in terms of the process and the time it was taking to recruit and hire staff. So Lizette, who's been doing amazing work on that front, is going to talk about that. And then Rich and Dorian Statham are going to describe the next bus redesign project, which is underway in Queens. I just want to make sure we've talked about the process and how we changed the rules, and we took another crack at this after the first version a few years ago got bad reviews. But I really want folks to understand what the substance of this is. So those are the two presentations for today. And with that, let me turn it over to Lizette.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. As Chair Lieber presented in March, reviving talent and culture is one of the MTA's strategic priorities for this year. And I'm here to report on the progress we've made addressing some of the human resources issues that we've been experiencing. But before
Now, I want you guys to pay attention to this slideshow right here. It says recruiting and retraining talent at the MTA. If you look at this picture, see, this is what I don't like about this company. If you look at this picture, you see mostly people of color. But when you get into the high ranks, these executive ranks, they don't look for people of color unless they have a law degree, right? So how are you going to be recruiting and retraining talent at the MTA to do what? Right? To have them go to a glass ceiling where they can't, or very few obtain in this company unless you have a law degree? Let's continue.
Before I talk about the progress we've made, I wanted to spend some time describing where we were last year and how we got there. I think it's important. So the HR issues that you've heard about, the difficulties in hiring up and staffing up quickly, is a result of what I'm calling a perfect storm of events. And some of the issues that contributing, as the chair mentioned, the hiring freeze first in 2018 and then again in 2019 due to COVID, created a slow and steady increase in gaps in the people.
She said the hiring freeze in 2018 and 2019 due to COVID. COVID didn't hit the MTA until 2020. Let's continue.
Resources across the entire agency without an ability to replenish or close that or ability to hire. Then what I'm calling the transformation tornado, though it was intended to improve the personnel structure within the agency, the work wasn't completed. And I'll give you a little peek behind the curtain about what that means for us day to day. So the focus really was on lifting and shifting the people to their new agency, but the tedious task of actually ensuring that the organizational infrastructure of the organization to be cleaned up, that didn't happen. And so, again, just as an example, one way that shows up post-consolidation after people were moved, there are people working side by side with each other, performing the same work, possibly with different titles, with different salaries, doing the same things. That work wasn't cleaned up. Another issue that we are grappling with, post-consolidation, policies weren't consolidated across the agency, so we still have different groups doing different things for the same purposes, particularly within HR. Data was still housed in different agencies and used in particularly different ways. There was no visibility into some of our practices centrally, and you can't manage what you can't measure, and that was a challenge. The shift happened.
She says you can't manage what you can't measure. This company, she just ran through a whole list of things. People was transferred to different departments. Departments was transferred to different departments, and the work didn't follow. This is a great example of how poorly ran this company is. The bureaucracy in this company is on another type of level. I remember Sarah Feinberg said something one time where she said that she have people who work for her and she don't know what they do. That's because the MTA don't have no true, real organizational structure. They have jobs that they possibly don't need anymore, and they have jobs that they need but can't identify what they are because there's too many bosses, there's too many managers, there's too many people who know what to do but don't know nothing at all. Let's continue.
Happened so quickly that in some areas, functions were left without a home. Some things that were performed day to day within agencies, post consolidation, people moved, but all of the tasks didn't follow. Some of us were caught a little bit flat-footed there. So all of these things organizationally paint a really difficult picture for us. So while all of this is happening, then the MTA had to do a hairpin turn to quickly take advantage of the much needed cash infusion, but to hire up almost, instantly, right? During an incredibly hot employment market. So all of these things happening together really show how challenging an environment it's been.
Let's not get it confused and twisted. It's not all of those things that were happening together. I'm not saying that those things possibly didn't play a role, but the big issue here is the mismanagement of this company. For the riders, for the taxpayers, when people say MTA stands for money thrown away, this is a prime example of it. They are running a company that they don't really know what they are doing. Let's continue.
To get what we need to do quickly. And I have to be honest, it's a bit messy, but we're working through it. We've been hard at work trying to change the course, and while there's a lot of work left to be done.
Now, I do salute her for calling it messy and recognizing that there is a problem, because prior to her coming on board, Ms. Camilo coming on board, nobody ever publicly said that there is an issue. But let's continue.
And, the last 6 months and the work we've done during this time gives me a lot of confidence that we're really beginning to turn the tide here. And a couple of things to highlight. I can spend 2 hours talking about all the work that's happening, but a couple of things to highlight is, one, a very under-resourced talent acquisition team got an infusion of additional recruiters to help have more hands, more bodies do the work of trying to get more people on staff quickly. Data. We have been laser focused on using data to help us manage our hiring. One of the items that I'm going to highlight for you is a rollout of our people movement dashboard. So one of the first things that any HR management team does is to use their data to assess comprehensively basic data points such as attrition, hire rates, separations. And the good news is that at each agency, that everyone was using the same system, PeopleSoft. But the bad news was that everyone was using it differently. And so pulling up centralized data reports on how we're doing as an agency.
What does she mean by that? That means that every department here was doing their own thing. They was running it how they wanted to run it instead of being on one accord. And that's the problem with the MTA. The right hand do not know what the left hand is doing. The right eye is not looking at the same thing as the left eye. And when you have that type of coordination as an organization, you're going to get these type of results that you see right here in the MTA. You're going to get these type of reports that we see right here, right now in the MTA. Let's continue.
It just was impossible. So one of the first initiatives we did was to have the strategic initiatives group work with the people group to develop and build out a people movement dashboard. And this tool allows us to centrally track separations and additional data points about our workforce, like entries and exits. And so these data points allow us to compare across agencies and proactively pursue hiring practices to meet goals. And I'm going to see, there we go. So this is an example of what our dashboard looks like. This is one of the screens that we use. And what we're focusing on here is the hiring rate. So at a management level, the KPI that we're tracking is the ratio of employee exits to entries. And our goal is to hire more people than we're losing. But as you can see, in early 2021, the agency was losing a lot more people, many more people than it was hiring. And so, for example, in January, we lost 434 people, mostly through retirements, compared to the only hiring 72. So that inversion clearly is not workable for an agency that provides essential services.
I'm going to tell you one problem the MTA have with onboarding employees. Their process is antiquated. It's old. Let's say if I take a test in 2022, let's say I take a test this month for a position in the MTA, specifically speaking civil service. I would not get a phone call for the job for like 3-4 years later. That process is way too slow, right? Especially to onboard bus operators, train operators, conductors, and other civil service titles at this agency. To give you guys an example, in 2016, when I went to sign up for corrections, I took the test in March. I was called by September, hired in September. I just didn't take the job. This is not the case here at the MTA, but let's continue.
But thankfully, once the hiring freeze was lifted and the spigot was open, that tide began to turn about late July 2021. And since then, through an all-hands-on-deck effort, not only have we turned the tide on hiring more people than we lose, as you can see, we're on an upward trajectory. And an example of this on a micro level, given the ramp up of the staffing necessary to support East Side Access, we were a bit concerned about the negative index at the Long Island Railroad this year, which is, comparing to what the agency was doing overall. But things really have turned around under President Rinaldi's leadership, and now we're hiring 3 times as many people as we're losing. So we're on track. So in addition to data, we're focusing on efficiencies in the hiring process. Months can go by between when a position is posted and when they're finally filled. And as you can imagine, most of the talent is not going to wait around in a hot job market for many months. So we have a cross-disciplinary initiative underway to systematically look at how we reduce each step in the process. And we've made a lot of progress getting positions filled, but again, more work is happening, more work needs to be done. But one initiative that we've gotten underway is mass hiring events that I would like to highlight. So the goal with these events is to get everybody in the room together at the same time, recruiters, hiring managers.
See, before they think about a mass hiring event, a job expo, trying to onboard people who's not already in the MTA, why don't the MTA really look inside their own ranks for certain positions? Now, in the beginning of her slideshow, she talked about that, but it don't really address the issue, because when people do promote in the company or look for another job in the company from within, the MTA, the company, hold on one second, use sick record against the employee. They use discipline against the employee, but they will go hire someone on the outside where they can't look at this person's sick record, where they can't look at this person's discipline record and hire them before giving someone the opportunity on the inside. That's a major problem here in the MTA, and specifically speaking amongst women. A lot of women, sick time is depleted simply because they decided to expand their families, right? There's no light duty work. There's no reasonable accommodation. So if a woman needs a reasonable accommodation because a pregnancy-related illness, she would have to use up her sick time. And we all know how the MTA look at sick time here more than discipline. They look at your sick time, and if you don't have that sick time that meets the threshold for them, you're not going to get that position. And that mostly affects women.
The talent, all in the same room, streamline the process or even front load the process so that qualified applicants get interviewed on the spot and hopefully even get an offer on the spot. And maybe in the private sector, this is something that happens frequently, but for us, this is a big deal. It's a new initiative.
It's not really a new initiative, Ms. Camilo. This initiative is actually being practiced by certain managers when they hire their friends, when they hire their families, when they put their brothers in certain positions. All the red tape is cut. So the job, this what you're trying to implement is actually happening, but it's only for family and friends. But continue.
So last month we organized an IT expo where we did, again, all of the legwork up front. It was a really good partnership between IT and HR. Everything, was done on the front end. We had a great turnout
Just to add, Ms. Camilo, maybe you need to ask Charles Henschke how to cut the red tape to get a family member on board in the office to do office work and to fill other positions in the MTA. Maybe you should ask Charles Henschke.
The event, we had 4,000 people apply. We had 95 people be interviewed, and we selected 47 candidates during that one event. The big win here was really kicking the tires on our process, seeing where we can make grand efficiencies and making decisions up front. So that was a very successful initiative, which we're hoping to replicate. And actually for the Long Island Railroad, we have one coming up on June 14th, focusing on operating titles like electrician, radio technician, and machinists, all of the difficult to fill skilled crafts. And we're working very closely with elected officials and our partners in labor to really get the word out so that we can start filling these vacancies. So one of the great things that our People Movement dashboard made very clear to us is that we really have to look at our bench to develop our bench. The majority of our employees have more than 10 years of experience, and the majority of the employees who separated from the agency retire. So we really do have to focus on building our next generation of public servants here at the MTA. And so these should really be folks that really understand the MTA, take the subway, the buses, the commuter rail, and understand that.
Now, we just talked about how those same qualities should be for the MTA board members, but they want to hire people who have those qualities, but they don't want to have those same qualities in the people who make the decisions on the MTA board. This place is crazy.
The MTA is a linchpin part of New York City, and there is no better place to partner with than with CUNY. CUNY is a great institution to recruit from. It produces smart and diverse pool of potential employees with a broad variety of disciplines. I mean, they have a widely successful and top-tier engineering school at City College, Baruch Zicklin School of Business, a broad array of disciplines, and the MTA needs all of those disciplines.
See, this is the problem I have with that. Let's look at Sarah Meyer for an example. Sarah Meyer degree basically says that she should be running a museum. They actually have her running the communications department, and they are discriminating against a woman who have a communications degree and won't even give her an interview to promote. So the problems is much deeper than in which Ms. Camilo is saying. The problems are actually deep rooted in nepotism, cronyism, and I hate to say it, white supremacy. But continue.
So we're partnering together to initiate a paid internship program for this year for 125 college and grad students starting in July to build on that need for in the years ahead. And it's not only a great institution for future leaders. Every day, CUNY grads contribute to the MTA. I just wanted to call out a few of our staff members who've graduated from CUNY. Allison DeSereno, lead on congestion pricing, got her PhD at CUNY. Shani Ferreira, chair, senior advisor for communication and policy, went to Baruch, my own deputy. Rosita Ibrick, MPA from Baruch. Carolyn Ortega, chief product officer in IT, got her PhD at the Graduate Center.
I mean, let's be honest. These are some great initiatives, but it's not going to work because the culture of the MTA is not going to allow it to work. Like the MTA will hire somebody who have a master's degree in zookeeping to run Accessoride. This is exactly what they do. And they will actually overlook a person, a supervisor or a driver who knows the whole schematics of the Accessoride because they don't have the degree. But the person who have the zookeeper degree is more qualified than the person who's actually been doing the job. These ideas are great. They are good. But culturally, they are not going to work because the MTA have a bad culture of putting the wrong people in the wrong positions to do important work.
Monica DaCosta, Chief Officer of Operations at Transit, got her MPA. So every day, CUNY grads contribute to the MTA to get to where it needs to go. We need more of that talent here. So moving on to focusing now on our internal current employees. We talked a little bit about what we're doing to attract new employees, turning it inward a little bit. We're looking at our current employees, and as the chair mentioned, providing feedback to employees is a tool to increase employee engagement. And we're working to build that culture here at the MTA. We instituted the
That sounds like a great thing. Let's go.
first all-agency centralized performance management program for non-represented staff. And previous to that, each agency did its own thing or did nothing. So this is really a move that is really about changing the culture and instilling in this institution this practice of feedback.
Well, let me explain something. To change the culture means to knock down barriers. Let's get rid of that non-represented separation between the workforce. If you want to have put the best qualified candidates forward, you must get rid of that separation and those barriers. It should be about having the best employees, not represented and non-represented, unless the title is in some type of civil service work.
Performance feedback. And just to give you a bit of a flavor of how successful we've been, in 2019, participation in a performance management program previously was as low as 40%. And this year, for 2022, we've got an 88% compliance rate. So as you can see, we really are pushing everyone to adopt this, and we want to make it part of our culture. So, not only do these evaluations help us align staff goals with MTA-wide corporate goals that were presented to the board in March, but evaluations are also important to make staff feel more connected to the work and to the institution. So especially during the COVID era, when we were all separated and we were all working remotely, it's an opportunity to reestablish a sense of cohesiveness and mission. And so we, as you can see, have made a lot of progress there. So I've given a few snippets of some of the challenges we're dealing with, how we're trying and working together to overcome them. But as I mentioned a few times before, the work, there's a lot more work that needs to be done. We are still looking at the HR process to continue to further streamlining and making it more efficient. We are looking at adding new tools like an applicant tracking system, and upgrading some of our other data.
How a company such as the MTA does not have an applicant tracking system. 70,000 employees here. How you guys don't have an applicant tracking system in 2022. But you want to swipe our fingerprints. You want to use what they call it. I forgot what they call it. But you want to use that to swipe our fingerprints and for swipe our pass. It's crazy.
Programs. Another initiative that we have under consideration is a plan to offer some form of telework for non-represented staff whose job functions can be performed remotely. This initiative would go part and parcel with performance management. And also working with our budget constraints, within our budget constraints, we're looking at reviewing our compensation systems and policies, basically finishing the work of transformation. And I hope to be back to provide the board with further updates on the work that we're doing. But that's the snapshot of what's been going on.
Questions and comments?
Now, I want to say this. Miss Camilo, she doesn't know any better. She's coming from DCAS. She hasn't been with the MTA for a year yet. And she's going to try her best to make the changes that I would say that we need. We need the changes. I don't disagree with anything that she's saying, a lot of the things that she's saying, but she just does not understand how toxic the MTA culture is, how antiquated the culture is, how the MTA hire people who do not know what they're doing simply because they are lawyers or simply because they have a law degree. Now, I would say that from my first encounter watching her at the MTA board meeting, that she is a person who knows what she's doing, and she's in a position that she has experience in, right? And she's going to bring these new ideas. None of these ideas are really new to me or my team because we talk about this all the time, but it's sad to say someone like Jano Lieber. I mean, he's also someone who I'm talking about. Like Jano Lieber, if you look at his history, Jano Lieber is a master at what he really does, which is construction, architecture, plans. I would say that he's a master at that, but as far as running the MTA, this is not what he's built for. This is not something that he's familiar with. And this is the problem with the company. They put people in positions, key roles, who cannot carry that torch fully. Like now, if Jano Lieber was the chief or the chairman of construction in the MTA, he would be the man for the job. But to actually run the company, to understand operations and things of that nature, he's not. And I'm not saying that he can't learn or he didn't learn or he don't understand, but we see the mistakes that he make regarding safety, not understanding certain things. And even at his level, you need to understand a whole bunch of things to be the chairman. Now, another video I would like to play is an MTA board member actually told Jano Lieber and Miss Camilo like what it really is, what the real issues are in the MTA when it comes to retaining good employees, because we hear all the time, MTA, ATM. People want these jobs because they're union, you're going to have a pension, the medical is great. That is no longer the case any longer. No, it's not. A whole bunch of other jobs in the private sector are offering the same thing. Let's listen to what this video is about.
Yeah, regarding what attracts someone to a job. Yeah, we have, I defend all our jobs, say these are good jobs. We like them a lot. But as far as wages and benefits, someone to a job. Yeah, we have, I defend all our jobs, say these are good jobs. We like them a lot. But as far as wages and benefits, believe me, the construction industry has very good pension benefits, the union side, and very good health and welfare benefits. That's not where our advantage is regarding recruitment. Our advantage in recruitment is you don't get laid off 6 months, 8 months, a year. So that's the sort of thing that makes us more of a career. Now, two, it's like the business cycle. Now the demand for labor is very high, and all the really great people seek out the money. Well,
and that's something that the MTA is not willing to do. The MTA is not willing to give workers the money. They want workers to work at a subservient wage progression, subservient salary, annual salary, which do not keep up with inflation in New York City. And Norman Brown, he got it. He understands it. You heard what he said.
when the demand for labor is much lower, then the opposite happens. So we got to position ourselves in the sweet spot for each institution. Now, my concern, which was my concern with the transformation, and I feel like this is a little bit of a Groundhog Day conversation we're having about recruiting, by the way. This goes over and over again, but the transformation took all of that dynamic from the agencies and put it in your lap at the mothership. So this is my concern.
Listen to what Mr. Brown said. It put the responsibility into the mothership, into Jan Oliba's lap. And he basically said, Jan Oliba, you dropped the ball. You dropped the ball. And he's right. He's right. They put these responsibilities into people's hands who cannot manage those responsibilities correctly. And like I said, Jan Oliba, he's a very personable guy. I don't deny that he's not a good guy. I'm not saying that he's a bad guy. I'm not saying that he's a good guy. I think that he's very personable. But that has absolutely nothing to do with running the company to make sure it run efficiently and to make sure that the taxpayers are getting a money worth in this company. Can you guys imagine the bureaucracy and how much money the MTA blow for positions that double and trip over each other? This company needs to be micromanaged on a level like never before. There possibly need to be a president for subways. There needs to be a president for buses. There needs to be a president for stations. There needs to be a president for CED. This company needs to go through a real micromanaging transformation. There should not be a New York City Transit president who have to manage over everything New York City Transit, because then they don't understand the bureaucracy or they can't micromanage these certain departments to get out of the negative bureaucracy of how the MTA is being run. Like, I'll never forget what Sarah Meyer said. She have people who work for her who she don't even know what they do. In order to fix all this stuff, Miss Camilo, the transformation needs to happen at the top. There needs to be a president for all these different departments until everything is brought to the position where it needs to be. And I'm not talking about a senior vice president. I'm talking about a president, a senior vice president in every department until we get the company where it needs to be. It be micromanaged. We figure out who does what does what, how it works, and when it shouldn't work. And then we could get to your plan as far as what we need to do. Now, not even that, because the plan that you said can be incorporated if the company is micromanaged. But if we're not trying to break down these departments even more, get rid of the New York City Transit position and create presidents, New York City Transit president position, and create presidents in these exact, like I said, subways, buses, construction, and things of that nature, we will continue to have these problems. I hope you guys enjoyed this broadcast. I need you guys to donate to the platform. You could donate via Cash App. Let me put that on the screen. The Cash App is Progressive Action 100. Donate to the platform. I am your host, Tramel Thompson. Share out the show. We're going to keep the information coming. I'll catch you guys later. Peace. And remember, it's tribe season.